a priest of the mysterious and secret rites of divine worship. That's what their scientific name, Phrynocephalus mystius, translates to, from, I assume, Latin. Why were they named this, I hear you asking? When they were first discovered, was this lizard yelling sermons at a herpetologist? Close. I can only imagine when the secret toadhead Agama was first discovered. It was hissing at its loudest, with its pink, fleshy display out and proud. So just imagine that scene and take some creative umbrage, and I'm sure you can see somewhat where the priest of the mysteries and secret rites and divine worship come from. Maybe. A little bit, if you squint. Their other names are much easier to understand in terms of their origin. Their most commonly used nomenclature, the secret toadhead Agama, comes from their secret stuff. So they're Agamas, for one. Agamas being a genus of long-tailed lizards from Asia and Africa, which doesn't include bearded dragons. That's Agamidae, which is the family that Agamas sit in. Either way, that's where the Agama part of their name, in part, comes from. However, what really makes my head spin is the secret toadhead part. I assume toadhead refers to their head superficially resembling a toad, kind of. I can only really assume because, as far as I'm aware, there's no documentation on what the hell was going through the head of the herpetologist that decided to name them this. Ditto for everyone else in the Phrynocephalus genus. What about their secret? What's their secret? Well, as you can probably imagine, it's the skin flaps. They're secret because you don't expect them to have this at first. Then all of a sudden they flap out and show you their pink stuff. But why do they show us their pink stuff? That's what I'm asking. What exactly is that supposed to accomplish? Well, there are a few theories. The first theory is of it being an aposematic display. Aposematism is when an animal, typically brightly colored, is signaling either its toxicity or general distastefulness. The idea is that the secret toadhead Agama first uses its camouflage to prevent itself from being attacked by predators, and then, if all else fails, flashing the pink stuff as a way of showing that they are not tasty or fatal if you eat them. Well, except they're not poisonous, but the birds don't know that. Aposematism is very commonly used by non-poisonous animals as well. The second theory is that the cheek flap flaring is a display for other individuals of their species. Some say it's for mating purposes, and some theorize it's for territorial displays. Which theory holds more water? It's thankfully rather easy to say, primarily because of the study that tested both. A potential diametic display revealed in a lizard, where they used multiple methods to test which situations the secret toadhead Agama flares their stuff most commonly. Funnily enough, males were more likely than females to flare, while juveniles wouldn't do it at all. Even then, flaring the cheek flap seemed to be a last resort. It was primarily an anti-predator response, and they kept running away from the perceived threat the first several times before they would flare up. When they didn't run, they would open their mouth and hiss, without flaring the cheek flaps. Now, why would they be unwilling to use this as a defense mechanism? And why are males more willing than females to engage in this display? The bright pink flaps aren't exactly subtle. This much is clear. In fact, the cheek flaps have very unique UV properties. When a bird is flying above them, the cheek flaps effectively flash them with a spike of luminance and chromatic contrast. That likely buys the lizard some time to run and hide as the bird recovers. Since it's so visual, they probably only do it when a bird is really starting to swoop in. As to why a male is more likely to resort to this, the researchers theorize it's because the males are hunted more than the females. So there's more selection. They're hunted more often because they're out of the sand more often for courting purposes. Courting, yes, but the cheek flaps are not an aspect of courting. Not even remotely. We know this for sure because if it did, then there would be some kind of sexual dimorphism with the flaps. The males would likely have the flaps be bigger, whereas the females would be smaller, or wouldn't have them at all. In fact, males are actually less likely to flare their cheeks out when a female is present. Like, what's wrong, fellas? Cold feet? No, their courting happens with their tails. They do a little swirl situation with their tails that have a cute gradient to black. I initially thought that this was a defensive display of some kind, almost to signal scorpion-like poison tips, to match their aposematic cheek colors. But what's weird is that this never happened in the study. There are photos of them doing it as a part of their defensive routine, plenty, but they don't do it in the presence of the researchers, except during the courtship trials. How strange. Either way though, the males definitely do curl their tails in the presence of a female as a matter of courting. The fact that black tails are used during the process of courting is reflected in the fact that females don't have the black tips on their tails. Why do some males use the tail as an additive to their defensive display sometimes? I don't know. The tail waving is also used to communicate between males, suggesting perhaps some sort of, well, I hesitate to say language, but some sort of physical communication using their tails. The specifics of this communication have not yet been mapped out. What we do know for certain is that there's quite a big presence of territoriality between males. They break into fights in the wild quite often. As you can probably tell based on the photos of this species, secret toadhead agamas are native to some incredibly sandy locales. Although the IUCN is confused on their population numbers, we know that, at the very least, they have enough presence to make up populations from western Kazakhstan to northwestern China, with quite the dense presence in Uzbekistan. Now let me make something very clear. I have absolutely nothing against the Mr. Clint Laidlaw from Clint's Reptiles. Of course I don't. But in his videos on the secret toadhead agama, he refers to their native terrain as...
But what we do know about them is fairly straightforward. These guys come from the desert. And when I say desert, I don't always mean a sandy wasteland, but in this case, I mean a sandy wasteland. These guys come from a faraway place where the caravan camels roam, where it's flat and immense and the heat is intense. It's barbaric, but to them, it's home. They're from way out there on the dunes.
Now, is it true that there are some spans of their native area that have sand dunes? For sure, of course, I'm not going to dispute that. But by no means is it all a wasteland. So here I have open Google Maps in one tab, and in the other tab, we got the IUCN Red List page for the toad-headed agama. As you can see, and as I mentioned in the video, they have a wide variety of locales that they are native to. Let's take a look at Iran right here in this little splotch, right on the border of Afghanistan, maybe right here. Wow. Okay, it's still very sandy. Some kind of crops here, but more sand stuff, some vegetation, albeit sparse. Very cool. I wonder what you're growing. Very nice. Southwest of Mashhad right here, around here. Oh, excuse me. Definitely not where, as Clint said, the caravan camels roam. We can see cars. More around here. Still road. Very mountainous. And looks quite humid. We can see some vegetation here. Not very well. It's very pixelated. Quite a bit of green. No sand dunes yet. Right in the middle of Uzbekistan, going into Turkmenistan. Let's look at the border here. Like right here. Oh, wow. Whoa, how'd they do that? Oh my god. I love that. Oh, that's awesome. They've got a little mausoleum right here. And a Ferris wheel? Quite a bit of dense foliage. Of course, this is most definitely like a garden. Someone's garden here. But, I mean, the fact that there is a garden here is... that's kind of suggestive that the weather isn't conducive to a desolate wasteland. In fact, there's quite a lot of greenery thriving here. We're looking for more, like, wild, untamed wilderness areas. Oh my god! Look at the tiles! Okay, we're not here to look at architecture. Oh, wow! Oh my god! Wow, beautiful garden! That's amazing! Who did this? Whoever did this, your garden is beautiful. Not untamed wilderness, though. We're looking for the wilderness around here. That would be right here. Oh, nope. Look at those buildings. Nice work, guys. Though, not what we're looking for. But, not seeing any camels yet. But I didn't really expect to see camels, necessarily. Okay, so all of this area should have some toadhead agamas native to. Right here. Wow. This looks more like a valley than a desert. But of course it's a desert in terms of it's dry. Very, very dry. Quite a lot of green here. Not seeing any dunes. We still have yet to see any dunes, but that's fine. Wow, look at that. Oh, I would love to go herping here. This isn't really a desolate wasteland. This doesn't look particularly barbaric, as he described it. Though I'm not sure what makes the wilderness look barbaric necessarily. I think by barbaric he meant like not a lot of water or food, but I mean a lot of vegetation. Let's check out this part of Kazakhstan that borders the Caspian Sea. Here, this little fist. I mean, we can see right here, there's just a straight up forest, but we're not gonna look at that. Right here. Ooh, well look at that. Quite a wide variety of sediment here. You could probably make some sick ass clay with this. Ooh. we've got a bit of a mountain situation going on here. Not really flat, but it is a mountain. I don't think he would describe a mountain as a sand dune. I don't think he would make that mistake. But beautiful, beautiful terrain. Oh, let's check here. I think right over by the Tian Shan Desert, I am very curious about. The lake's there. Okay, so right here. Oh my god. This looks like a Bob Ross painting. Well, this is definitely an area right here that the toad-headed agama is native to. The dense forest right there. Oh, this would be a beautiful place to visit. Oh, this isn't a desolate wasteland. This isn't flat. This is not the ideal place for camels. I mean, they are native here. We can see that. Okay, fine. We can look at one coastal area as a treat. Oh, wonder what they censored. Big naked person lying down. So definitely a cool place. We do have a lot of vegetation here. Sand, but like this is the kind of clay packed sand that builds those like more rugged looking mountains. We do have a lot of vegetation throughout. I mean, the fact that there's foliage here, it's kind of not like it's not really a waste. It's not a wasteland. We also have yet to see any sand dunes. What's up with that? When are we gonna see any sand dunes? Right here, this little section in Russia, we do have some native area, which for sure this area is very green. I just want to check it out. Can we check out Russia? Can we just check it out real quick? Let's check out Russia. They're native here? Holy balls. Okay. Okay, yeah, like right there on this part where it kind of goes out a little bit. This is where it ends. So most definitely they are native around here. This place is amazing. Imagine how many animals could be in this body of water right here. But it's also, it looks very humid, like insanely humid. That is, well, okay, that's definitely sand. So, Clint, you're right, there is sand. Clint, I wouldn't call this a desolate wasteland. Clint, I wouldn't call any of the places we saw today a desolate wasteland. Even the places that don't have any plants. Here's the thing, alright? Clint Laidlaw, God bless you. I know why he referred to this entire region as a desolate wasteland. He did use the term barbaric, but I'm gonna try to be charitable and say that it was probably like just an unfortunate choice of words. Maybe he was referring to like the lack of resources that an animal could live off of. Here's the thing. God bless Clint Laidlaw. I don't mean this as like a, oh, he's so stupid. Like, no. This dude's a biology professor. He knows his shit when it comes to general ecology, you know, genetics, like genetic biology, microbiology, all that sort of stuff. Taxonomy. He knows his shit, all right? But Clint, let me just tell you. When you're describing a place that people live, like people live here, when you're going to describe these places as like barbaric,
It's barbaric.
and I know you probably didn't mean it this way, and I know that like historically, that word's got some connotations, really bad connotations, and when we're talking about animals, like the toad-headed agama, you're doing yourself no favors by boiling entire regions of the world down to sand. It's just sand and camels and dunes. No, let's not do that, alright? Let's see to it that it doesn't happen again. That being said, although they're not always on sand, their body is definitely built for it. The feet of the secret toad-head agamas have these little triangular fringes that are partially meant to help in burying themselves in the sand, and partially for running on top of the sand easily. All you skink fans out there might be seeing these feet and getting thoughts of the skinkus skinkus, or the sandfish skink, who has similar little fanned scales on their toes. And it is a similar mechanism for a similar reason. Both are used for gripping extremely granular substrate, the kind of sand that's constantly falling downwards. Secret toad-head agamas, however, are able to run on top of it in addition to digging themselves in, likely helped by the less coarse substrate that they inhabit, or the more defined fringes on their toes. The self-burying behavior they do is quite cute. It's also reminiscent of the burying done by bullfrogs. Secret toad-head agamas do it for a similar purpose, that of course being for their sit-and-wait strategy of eating, or them being ambush predators. As a species coming from such a wide stretch of terrain, it's only expected that they would have such a wide variety of names as well in their respective mother tongues. Although we call them the secret toad-head agama, they're also referred to as the Khorasan secret toad-head agama, Khorasanis, in German as Biartingar Kriotemkov, Owen Krotemkov, in French as Phrynocephale moustache, Phrynocephale barb, in Russian as Ushastach gruglogolovka in Chinese as darshazi, and in Azerbaijani as gulagli kurdebash kurtekele. That was a lot of languages. I think that's the first time I've ever said any words in Azerbaijani. And it probably sounded like it too. But I think that's all we know when it comes to the secret toadhead Agama. At the very least, that's all that's been documented. Although they've been known for quite a while, details on the why of their defense mechanism are still a little foggy. And not only that, but they were only recently uncovered. And here's to many more years of discoveries on this mysterious little animal. I love you, the secret toadhead Agama, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.